Here are your video tutor notes for assisting you with fixing your Chapter 8 Quiz A. And if we look at question number 1, it says which of the following equations is not linear. That's important to make sure you realize you're looking for the one that's not linear. You should circle the one that is not linear. And the key thing to it is that right here in this equation we have the variable x raised to the second power, and that's going to cause it to not be linear. If we go down here to 2, you are given the formula F equals 5/9 C plus 32, and that's the formula for converting temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And then the question that you're asked to answer is, if the temperature is 35 degrees Celsius, what temperature would that be Fahrenheit? So what you're really going to have to do is bring this 35 up and replace it into the equation for C, and you would have F equals 9/5 times that number plus 32. If you don't like working with the fraction 9/5, you can always take the 9, divide it by the 5, change it into a decimal, and you could replace this value here with the decimal version of it. From there, you should end up showing the step of work that you're going to get a number plus another number here yet, and then you'll have F equals something, and make sure you remember to put your degree symbol on it. As we continue on now, if we drop down to 3, 4, and 5, finding the slope of the line that passes through the following points, we're using the formula that m, or slope, equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which if we color code it quick, this point being x and y1, that's these numbers that you want to get put in here, and the other ones that are already blue would be this point where that's x2, y2. Once you substitute your numbers in, you're just going to subtract them. You're going to get a fractional value here that should get simplified into its simplest form before you leave it as your final answer. And you would do 4 and 5 the same way as you did 3. Remember, pause this video anytime you need to so that you have the time to work on finishing your problems. For 6, when you have a graph, it's easiest to think of slope as rise over run. Rise being your distance that you're going up or down, run being your distance that you are moving left or right. You have to look through and find 2 points that you know the exact locations of on your graph. And as we look through that graph, you really could be using any of those. If you use 2 closest together, it'll come out the easiest where you can simplify it. Notice that we went up 2 and we went to the right 1, so that's a positive 1, a positive 2. You simply would need to know which one of those is your rise and have it go on top, which one of those is your run, have it go on bottom. Put your answer there in its simplest form. For 7, keep in mind, and you saw one of these up above, out of 4, 5, and 6, you need to be able to identify where a slope is 0 and what causes that, and where a slope is undefined and what causes that. 7 shows one of the 2, and up above you had one of those answers as well. 8, keep in mind that this line actually is going downward, so I'll remind you about that for figuring that one's a slope. And if we move forward and take a look at what's on the back of the quiz, the first ones that you have to do up there about finding the x-intercept. This is where, in order to find the x-intercept, you needed to put a 0 in for y, and then you would have 0 equals 4x plus 12. You need to get the 4x by itself by doing something, and then after you get 4x by itself and have something over here that it's equal to, you need to get x all by itself, and you'll have the final answer, which then what you get there will be the x value that goes here when y is 0. And the second part of these problems is to put, in order to find the y-intercept, you need to put 0 in for x. And this one really comes out pretty easy, because when you put the 0 in here, there's not a lot that you have to do in order to solve for that. And you will get the point now where x is 0, y is some value that you have there. The same type thing goes on over here for number 10. We need to put a 0 in for y to find one of these values. We need to put a 0 in for x to find the other of the values. And as we go down here to 11, once again I'll remind you, pause the video if you're needing time to work. This is write an equation in slope-intercept form. So if we're going to write in slope-intercept form, we better know what slope-intercept form is. That's that y equals mx plus b. And the key thing is that y is all by itself. Here's our y here. It's not all alone yet. We have to change it. So we have y by itself. And what two values would we get here? By doing some work to get y by itself there. Remember, if you do something to one side, you have to do it to the other entire side. And the same thing would go on over here. I guess I could go back and make sure and remind you, the value m will end up being your slope, and your value of b that you have here will end up being your y-intercept. If we go on to 12, this has more steps is all in order to get the equation into slope-intercept form. You're going to have to go through doing something to both sides, and you'll have negative 8y is equal to something else, and then eventually you'll do something else and you should end up with y equals, and what you have left over to the right side will be slope-intercept form. One of your numbers comes down here to be your slope, and you'll get another value that comes down over here to be your y-intercept. Alright, if we drop down to 13 now, this says to write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form. So down here in the end, we know our final answer is going to come out to be y equals mx plus b. And we should know, though, what we're going to do is we're going to end up putting a value in here for slope, put a value in here for the y-intercept. This plus sign might end up being a minus sign if our y-intercept comes out to be a negative value. So not sure if that's plus or minus right now. And the way you're going to go about doing this is start with slope-intercept form where y equals mx plus b. And we're going to end up putting our slope in here. And in order to find out what b is, we are going to have to substitute in some values for x and a value for y. So as we do that, we see that our slope is -2. That should be substituted in here. This is our x-coordinate. It should be substituted in here. This being our y-coordinate, it should be substituted in here. So we've got our numbers replaced. Then you should be doing some work in this section that will allow you to get b by itself to find out what value of b. We know the slope from up above what it is, and our value of b is going to come from our answer that we get right there. If we look at what we need to do over here on 14, it's the same process as 13. The difference being we are not given the slope, we just know that the line passes through the following points. So here again we need to end up doing where we take our points that we have here, stack them and subtract them, or do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We need to get our slope, put it in its simplest form, and then we're ready to put it into the equation like we did on 13. If we go back over for 15 and 16, I'm going to zoom out one level I think here. The information you need to know on how to do this. This deals with point slope form, which is where we have y minus equals something times in parentheses x minus something, and we use a familiar letter m for slope there, and we use the letters y1 x1 for where we're going to substitute a point in. We are given a point here that the line's going to pass through, and we are given a slope. So what we should be having down here will be something minus something else is equal to something times in parentheses something else. It would be there's a y out here in front, there's an x out here in front. It's a matter of knowing how to substitute in the slope and the point into the equation properly. And if we go on to the last one, this really just uses the same thing. This equation is in this form. It's called point slope form once again. And you can take the information out of it, and you are supposed to, for this, identify the slope by looking at that equation and tell me what point the line went through. The one tricky thing about it is that in this problem, this is plus and it's a minus in the original equation, so there's something you need to remember about how that switched to being +8. Thanks, I hope this helps you.